Hi and welcome to Sun Moon Self. In this video I would like to address one of the biggest misconceptions that most people have when it comes to astrology, which is the zodiac sign or sun sign. It is very simply put, because it is simple, the sign which your sun happens to be in when you were born. That's all. In the horoscope or birth chart, of course, the sun is a very, very important thing, and without it, the show cannot run because it literally represents you, but also life itself. So it is your life essence and you in all your living glory. However, it isn't the only factor that is important, and it is by far not the only factor when you look at the personality as a whole, when you look at yourself as an individual who is complex, who is interesting, intricate, and multi-layered. And therefore, I believe, and many other astrologers agree, that the sun sign alone, albeit quite popularized in, let's call it pop astrology, isn't by far the only thing that you should look for when you want to know what a person is like. Getting to know them on a personal level notwithstanding, of course. When people read gossip magazine, astrology columns, or internet sites that say they have anything to do with astrology, most often they will only get to read the sun sign predictions, which aren't really predictions at all. They're just assumptions, although in many cases it seems to be quite arbitrary and also extremely generalized, so that it kind of fits every other sign as well. Which is the nature of things. It is supposed to be entertaining. It isn't supposed to be profound and educating and informative on a deep level. It's just entertainment, which is of course completely against my understanding of astrology and that of many other serious astrologers. But it sells and it generates clicks and views and likes and whatever it's called. So you have a lot of popularity when you, for example, make a video entitled "Why XYZ is the worst zodiac sign" or stuff like that, which doesn't make you look like a, let's put it politely, dignified, mature, competent astrologer. Many people have a very limited and ultimately inaccurate view of astrology as merely the sun sign denominations or typology, and this is something that I'm going to try and put in perspective in this video. When you talk about somebody's sign, yes, you mean the sign that the sun is in at the moment that they were born. Okay. However, this is by far not enough, as I have already indicated before. Why is it not enough? Because this would actually make every person born under a certain zodiac sign the exact same. And this is a mathematical impossibility. You visualize everything in context and you analyze everything in context. That means that beside the sun sign, the sun's position in a house is also important, and very, very much so. Imagine, for example, a sign that is usually described as pretty extroverted and a bit of a socialite maybe, and even somewhat superficial. You know how those categorizations are. They tend to focus on the not so flattering and the not so positive. These are traits that are definitely possible to manifest. However, they are being taken out of context because they are on a spectrum, and if you focus on just one end of the spectrum, you get a one-sided view of a person. And the most negative traits are also mostly manifested by the least self-aware people. This is something that needs to be kept in mind as well. Back to the signs that are supposedly very extroverted. If you look at a sign like that, but the sun is in the 8th house, for example, You probably won't get a very sociable butterfly that wears the heart on their sleeve. You will most likely get someone who is much more secretive and much more guarded emotionally, as the cliche of their sun sign tells you that they are. Another dimension, so we already have 2 layers, sun sign and house. Now comes the third layer, which is whether or not the sun is dignified, or how well the sun is dignified. That means every planet or luminary has signs in which it can unfold its full potential, or signs that kind of curtail or limit their full potential a little bit. So this comes into play too if you look at the sun and the signs that it is exalted in, or in detriment, or in fall, meaning it doesn't feel so well in this sign, it doesn't like it there so much. These are effects that can be mitigated, of course, and it all depends on the context with other planets, etc. The fourth aspect is the aspects. This is extremely important, and you absolutely cannot make, I repeat, you cannot make any realistic assessment of a person when you only look at the sun. Even with those aforementioned dimensions taken into consideration, it still isn't enough. You need to look at the aspects that the sun is making to the moon, to the planets, as well as the angles in your birth chart. The angles are the ascendant, the descendant, the IC, and the MC. So you have 4 cardinal points in your birth chart that are crucial for the development of your personality, your character, your traits, the way you approach the world, the way you see the world, the way you see yourself, what you look for in other people, how you are acting in relationships, how or why you act in a certain way, etc., etc. All this is very complex, and now you get to see the sheer mathematical impossibility of one sun sign representing every single person born under this sign. It just doesn't work this way. All these aforementioned different layers in a birth chart make a person into a multi-dimensional being, into a dynamic coexistence of different influences, different musical keys, if you want, different seasonal influences, however you want to put it. Because if you look at the zodiac itself, the zodiac is 12 steps or 12 seasons or 12 keys on the soul's path to individuation. And every sign has its spectrum, as I mentioned before, and just taking one side of the spectrum and saying, okay, this sign is great, this sign is not so great, this is astrologically incompetent. Another thing that has to be counted in is the ascendant, or to be exact, the planet ruling your ascending sign. What is the ascendant? That is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon the moment that you were born. So the planet ruling your ascending sign is also the ruler of your entire chart. So much for the sun being the only boss. There are more players than just the sun. While the sun is extremely important, yes, it is of course the life giver itself. However, the interplay between the sun and all those other factors make you who you are eventually. Many people don't even manifest their typical sun signs, gossip column cliches that much, or they tend to be more like their ascendant during their younger years and actually grow into their sun sign as they age and mature. And this is also a very important thing that most people don't even have a clue about. They think the sun is all there is and that was it. Well, the ascendant shows you, this is the cusp of your first house, it shows you who you are to the world or in relation to the world, how you approach changes, how you also appear to others, whether you appear extroverted, introverted, etc., etc. There are so many layers to a person, and you can't just slap some labels onto them that you read in some gossip magazine or a celebrity rag. Astrology wasn't even designed to reflect one person's individual life path. It was originally meant for kings and queens, for countries, for big developments such as alliances between countries or wars. It wasn't important at all what average Joe and average Jane were doing. The most important thing were the bigger picture and whatever pertains to one country's or emperor's well-being. Of course, an individual approach is very much what we do nowadays. Watch the stars, so to speak, and derive from that certain principles that also apply to your own life. Not because the stars cause anything, they do not, but there are correlations. There are definite correlations between what's going on above and what's going on below. As above, so below. As within, so without. So, to reiterate, the sun sign is important, sure, but the zodiac sign's characteristics tend to be a little bit on the too simplistic side, and especially the new age type of astrologers tend to focus on the very best attributes in certain signs and the not so flattering attributes in other signs that may very well never even manifest in this way or not at all. So once you understand what the zodiac is and have a good understanding of the zodiac signs' characteristics, energies, its dominances and its weaknesses, if you will, then you can move on to a deeper understanding of the sun sign and its implications on the individual human being. However, you must take into consideration the chart ruler, that is the ruling planet of your ascendant sign, and you have to take into consideration the moon and the other planets, as well as the angles and whatever aspects all these factors make between one another. So if you take all this into consideration, you understand how complex every birth chart is and therefore every human being is, and simply slapping labels on someone and saying, oh, you're this or that because your sun sign is so and so, that is so shallow and childish. And astrology isn't a popularity contest. You can manifest the worst or the best in anything. It depends on your level of self-awareness. It depends on so many things and the interplay between all the factors that come into your birth chart. The most important thing is to simply understand that it isn't that simple. There is more than just the sun that makes you you. And no matter if TikTok thinks that your sign is cool or isn't cool, please remember this. Every sign can be manifested in very different ways. And you have to know that every sign is valid and equally valid. And there simply isn't a good or bad sign. I hope you have found this helpful and that I could contribute to shedding a bit of light, speaking of the sun, on the sun sign and this pretty big misconception that a lot of people have of astrology and, in my opinion, rightfully dismiss it as nonsense because this approach certainly is nonsense. If you've enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you share it around, show it to people that you think might be interested as well. I will be making a lot more videos. I have many ideas floating around in my head as to what I'm gonna do content-wise. So be prepared for much more. And if you like this, please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like and a comment, that is also very much appreciated. And I hope the sun shines on you wherever you are. Until next time, bye.